What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Dad Bod Pod, a place for men to learn, grow, and live the healthiest life possible. I'm your host, Jason Priest. I've got an exciting guest for you guys today, but before we dive in, if you're brand new to the show, I highly encourage you to go back and check out some of the prior episodes. There is a ton of information, inspiration, motivation, and we lay out the entire game in terms of getting healthy and becoming the healthiest version of yourself. If you're a long-term listener, thank you so much for your continued support in our mission and making the biggest impact we can and the biggest dent that we can in the male obesity epidemic in our country. And if you get any value out of today's show, you guys know that are long-term listeners, we do not run ads. We are never going to run ads. We respect your time. We know most of you guys are listening to this in a commute or during the gym, whatever that may be for you. And so if you get value, take 10 seconds, drop us a quick review. That's what helps the show out a lot, helps grow the show, and gets the show into the ears of more men who can potentially change their lives and become the healthiest version of themselves. So with me today, I have Mr. Chris Burres, and he is a research engineer and scientist whose primary mission is to help people live longer, healthier, pain-free lives. Love the emphasis on the pain-free. Burres has diverse background in the field of inventions and manufacturing. With a BS in mechanical engineering from University of Houston, he is a co-inventor of patents related to the use of explosives in downhole oil well drilling and co-inventor of the most efficient fuelerine manufacturing equipment in use since 1991 and a co-owner of a company that manufactures a unique product containing a Nobel Prize-winning molecule that has been shown to extend the lifespan of test subjects by 90%, which is massive. So I'm excited for this interview today. So without further ado, Chris, welcome to the show, man. I'm excited to talk to you today.
Jason, thank you so much for having me. I'm happy to dive in. You kind of shared your 4 pillars, and I think we can hit most of those. I think we'll end up talking about most of those today.
Awesome. I'm glad, and my audience is well aware. We pound the table on those because the reality is this, man, like, that the world of nutrition for sure, but in terms of navigating the world of health can be a frustrating and overwhelming process for a lot of people. You let yourself go for too long and it gets to the point where you just don't know where to start. And so when it comes to the 4 pillars, we want to keep it as simple as possible. So with your background and everything that you do in terms of related to health, I want to get your take on what your thoughts are, where we're at as a country, right? Obviously our company's Dad Bod Health, and so we won't have to just specifically talk about the Dad Bod in general, but obviously prior to the pandemic, the obesity epidemic is the pressing issue in our country. Obviously, a lot of the people that are dying from the virus has been either elderly people with chronic conditions or obese people with chronic conditions. And so I think the pressing issue is we've got to address this somehow. So what is your take on where we're at as a country in terms of the obesity epidemic? And give me your thoughts there.
Well, I'm going to share kind of my 2019 going into 2020 story as one thing, and that's kind of very dad bod related.
Sure.
And then share kind of perspective on longevity, right? Like living a longer life. So first, coming into 2020, right before we knew what was going to happen in 2020, I already knew that I needed to make a difference. I was not the weight that I wanted to be. I actually lost 20 pounds in 2020. I didn't have that as a goal, 2020, but that's what happened. I just knew, and maybe a lot of dads out there fall to this, where you have dinner, right, with your family, your kids. I've got 10-year-old twins, and so they don't finish their meal, and I just kind of finish their meal, and then
I hear it a lot, man. I hear it a lot.
Right. And I don't know. So I ended up, I happened to be on his podcast and listen to his books, Dr. Gundry, and he talks about a lectin-free diet. Actually, we took a family trip again before all hell broke loose in 2020. And my kids actually know about lectin-free diets and everything because we listened to the book in the car. I don't necessarily attribute the 20 pounds to that specifically. I knew I just needed a reset. Like, hey, get this out of your head that you need to finish those fries, that you take the last 3 bites of burgers, like all of this stuff. And so, yeah, I would just encourage people, like, take the plunge and do a reset. And you probably have a better kind of program, and there's ways that they can connect with you and you can help guide them through that.
Sure.
I just encourage you to do that, right? Reach out to Dad Bod Pod and they'll have a process for doing that reset because it's helped me to the tune of 20 pounds. And then kind of health perspective. In our current society, we're going to be talking about this molecule and this study, this peer-reviewed published research that extended the life of test subjects by 90%. And I share that with a lot of people, and they say, well, why would I want to live longer? And I get it. Like, but I ask this question: if you had the same mental capacity that you have today, and you had the same physical capacity that you have today, would you be interested in living longer? What we have is a situation where we cannot extract old age from infirmment, right? From a challenged life. And so if what people are hearing when I'm talking about living longer is they're hearing, how much longer would you like to live an infirmed life? And I think for most people, it's kind of like, well, let me fill out my will and then we'll be good, right? Then, because I don't really want to have that infirmed life. And for some people, that's not true. That's fine. But there's an important movement that's definitely happening about how we separate like this belief that as you get older, you have to live an infirmed life. And I think, we're on the precipice of that massive kind of mind shift.
Yeah, no doubt, man. And I think I'm glad you went there, because the reality is, and let me just use my own life for example. So I had this conversation with my father-in-law quite often. It's like, he's quite a bit older than me, and obviously, and we talk about, okay, so what would be our goal, or what would be our milestone age where we would feel content with a good life lived, right? And we both kind of agreed that, if we can get to 80 and we are both physically capable of taking care of ourselves there, we've got the mental capacity, we're not in a nursing home or an assisted living, that we'd feel pretty good about having good quality of life up until 80. And 80 years is that's a good chunk of time. For me, I'm 41. So I look at it as, well, my life potentially could be halfway done. But there's also that potential for a little bit longer. And so you've got my interest, because look, if I can live to 100 and still take care of myself for the most part, and I get it. Like, if you're 100 years old, you're probably going to need some kind of help in some area. But the reality is if I can be home and family member help me out a little bit, but I'm not a burden on them, that's pretty damn appealing, I would say. And so I'm excited to unpack this, because I'd love to hear more. I want to live longer. I'll just tell you, if I don't have to rely on somebody to give me a bath and wipe my butt and take me to places and feed me and all that shit. I was director of nursing at a long-term care facility after I worked in the ICU, which I did not tell you. So I've seen as young as, I think the youngest guy we had was 56 years old in there, couldn't take care of himself. And so I've seen that end of the spectrum. And I don't want to be that guy. So I'm excited to hear more.
Yeah, it's not pretty. And that's our understanding. But even things are changing right now. You think about the most recent Super Bowl. You've got the oldest player, at least oldest quarterback. I don't know if he's the oldest player, and the youngest quarterback in the league to ever participate in the Super Bowl, 44 years of age. Like, people, my dad played semi-professional football. He didn't have 44 as a picture of when he was going to retire from football. Like, that's on nobody's radar.
No.
But now it is, right?
Yeah.
And that's a quantum shift already. And that's just, I believe that's going to continue to change. I read a book, I just found it on Amazon. I don't remember the title, but it was very interesting, because the fundamental premise of the book was, because of the speed of things, right? I love the phrase, if you're uncomfortable with how fast things are changing, I've got some really bad news for you. Things will never be slower, will never change slower than today.
I can't agree with you.
Tomorrow they're going to be moving faster and faster and faster and faster and faster.
Can't agree with you more.
Right? And given that, like, we could easily be quickly approaching that point where we can manage age, right? Where we can actually roll back what we have in our bodies. Because right now I could take a cell from Jason and I could do some genetic manipulation. I can't. Let me just make that clear. I can't.
Yeah. Hypothetically. Yeah.
But it can be done, right? And we can create a baby Jason. Right? So everything that you need for a younger, healthier Jason is in your body, right?
Yes, and I agree with that.
We just don't have right? We just don't have the levers, or we just don't understand it well enough. And I think we're going to the whole premise of this book was, how much would it suck to be the last person to die of natural causes? Because there will be one, right? Like and he might even have a statue, or I don't know what you do with that, but
it's going to happen. Yep.
Right. So he's like, hey, so like focus on your diet. Be aware of in the what's called the biohacking community, those opportunities that are there that may have some risk, but also have potential big rewards. And you can go to Dave Asprey, right? Bulletproof Coffee to look for some of that guidance, right? And his whole point was like, just extend it, because that one little extra year that you may get might be enough to push you over the edge so that you stick around for a lot longer. And obviously no one's interested in this if you're infirmed, right?
Yep. No, I love it. I love it. So I think you hit on some good points there. And ultimately, like, I think that if we're talking quality of life, that everybody wants longevity, you know, and there's an exception. I shouldn't say everybody. There are people out there that are highly depressed and might not ever get that fixed. That would rather not be alive. But I think that's the exception. I think that most people that are in their right mind that actually love life. I'm a guy who I love life. Life is hard. I'm not going to tell you that my life is easy, and I'll relate this to a saying that I say a lot, because a lot of our listeners are struggling with their health, right? We talk about this often, that life is hard no matter what. Like if you're fat, the fat life is hard. And if you're fit, the fit life is hard. My life is no easier than the fat person. But the bottom line is my challenges are quite different. And I would rather have my challenges than the challenges that I had when I was 60 pounds overweight. So I think that longevity is at the top of most people's minds, because who doesn't want to be around longer for your kids? Who doesn't want to be around? My business partner, one of my business partners, talk about often how his vision is to be the granddad at the trampoline park that's not sitting there, that is actually doing the trampolines with his grandkids. Who doesn't love the idea of that if everything aligns in terms of your physical and mental health? Yeah. And so
if grandpa doesn't snap in two as he's bouncing on the trampoline, right?
Correct. And so I love that you brought up, there's going to be some person that is the last one to die of natural causes. Because right now we're at a place, like, let's just be honest. We're at a place now where we can, if we want to, keep anybody alive for, way beyond the time that they're supposed to expire. Things like ventilators and things exist for a reason. Now, obviously, there's the ethical side of that too, when you talk about being brain dead and all this, but I'm talking about just in general, as a medical community today, we're already far beyond where we were 5 years and 10 years and 30 years ago. And so that's not going to go away. We are going to continue to evolve. And I hope that it's done in an ethical manner. And so let's talk about the study, because I think I'm ready to unpack this a little bit, because I'm curious. And so the study on the molecule was originally done on rats, correct?
Yes. Well, let's talk about the molecule first.
Okay, let's go there. Let's inform there, and then let's talk about the study. Yeah,
is really very much worth talking about, even as it's even unrelated to the study. So, in 1985, 3 professors at Rice University here in Houston discovered the third form of carbon. So we're familiar with diamond, we're familiar with graphite, and now there's a whole gamut of molecules that are closed cage molecules. I'll describe that in a second. So carbon 60 is one of them, carbon 70 is one of them, carbon 76. And I'm actually holding up a model of carbon 60 right now. And for those of you who are listening, if you imagine a soccer ball, the lines on the soccer ball represent the bonds between the carbon atoms. So you have a spherical molecule of 60 carbon atoms.
You guys that are listening, you can also see the visual version of this on YouTube. So go check it out on YouTube, and you can see what he's talking about, because it's very, very easzy for me to see the soccer ball when he's holding up.
Yeah, and make sure you smash the subscribe button.
Yeah, smash that subscribe button while you're there. Thank you. Little shameless plug. Yeah.
We can smash it. So this is affectionately called a buckyball. Actually, it's the shape of a geodesic dome. There's a guy by the name of Buckminster Fuller, who was an architect and a futurist, who brought the geodesic dome to the forefront, really, of architecture. If you want to think about the Epcot Center, right? The big circular structure, that's a geodesic dome, has the same structure as this, right?
Got it.
So they discovered it in 1985. By 1996, they won the Nobel Prize for the discovery, because the scientific community, if you think about, all right, we're smash the subscribe button, that's in an effort to like go viral, right? And we have this whole concept of going viral. We probably don't think of it as applying to the scientific community very often, right? Like that scientific thing went viral. This did. So in 1991, every single one of the 10 most referenced research papers. So that's other papers referencing a paper, and somebody has the honor of like tracking all of that. All 10 of them were related to fullerenes, right? Fullerenes, buckyballs, everything. So it went viral in the scientific community. In fact, I would kind of share what I've already shared with my friends and then go, well, what's it good for? And one of our jokes was, it's really good for funding. Because when the scientific community is going nuts for it, like you wrote a proposal back in the mid 90s about fullerenes, you got funded. And the reason they were excited about it is kind of twofold. The first, and that's kind of an overall concept, is they thought it was like a 3D version of benzene. Now, the benzene ring is important and necessary. It's actually necessary for modern society. If you just look around the room that you're sitting in right now, everything that's plastic has benzene as one of the base molecules in plastic. So we don't have plastics without benzene. We don't have most medicines without benzene. We don't have a lot of detergents. So modern society doesn't exist without benzene. So they thought that this, because actually that benzene ring, the ring that's associated with it, it's an all carbon ring, benzene is all over the exterior of this. So these shapes are on it, and a lot of the chemistry that we know regarding benzene actually applies to this buckyball. So that's why they won the Nobel Prize. You've got this amazing molecule. They're thinking it's going to be ubiquitous. Everybody's doing all sorts of research on it. It's superconducting. It's harder than a diamond. It turns into a diamond. It's got six-fold symmetry. So there's 6 planes through this ball that it's symmetrical. What that does is give it an amazing amount of resilience. In fact, you can fire it at a steel plate at 15,000 miles an hour. Most molecules will just shred apart. This one collapses and then bounces right back. It's insanely resilient.
It's like also a rubber band ball.
Huh?
It's like a rubber band ball, right?
Exactly, right? Yeah. It's also really good at holding electrons, so it can be a good replacement for batteries. Replacing lithium, and that ability to hold electrons will actually start to play as we start talking about this as a supplement, because it's an antioxidant, and those antioxidants are negative charged, or those oxidants are negatively charged, reactive oxygen species, and so this has the ability to hold those and release those. So that's kind of hey, there's the molecule. Everything that you just described is really interesting, but totally unrelated to like supplementation and longevity. Let's kind of dive into that.
Well, I think we needed and I'll just tell you, we're very big on anything that we teach. We're very big on the why behind the how, right? So I can tell you how all day long. If I go tell you, hey, Chris, this is how you're going to lose 20 pounds, not likely that you're going to follow through unless you know the why. But when you know the why, that brain-body connection is made. And I believe that that's where you're 99% more likely to take action. So I'm glad that you gave us the why. Now let's talk the how and how this works.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, benzene, ubiquitous. Benzene is actually known to be toxic and is a known carcinogen, right? So when you don't have it in plastic, it's actually toxic and dangerous. You don't want to be around it in general. They actually assumed that this buckyball, right, would be toxic as well, just because they thought it was like a 3D version of benzene. And if we're going to use it like we use benzene in modern society, then we have to understand, is it dangerous? We're assuming it is. And how dangerous is it? So they did a toxicity study out of the University of Paris.
Okay.
And in that toxicity study, they gave rats water, rats olive oil, and then rats olive oil. And at this point, as we're giving it to a living animal, I'm going to call it ESS 60. And there's a very specific reason for that, because C60, carbon 60, is for industrial purposes.
Okay.
And there's peer-reviewed published research that proves that if you improperly process it, it's harmful. ESS 60 is C60 that's been processed for safer human consumption, right? Okay. And that's the only thing that's in our, as you can imagine, that's the only thing that's in our product. So again, they gave rats water, rats olive oil, and then rats olive oil with ESS 60.
So when you say sorry to interrupt, when these rats, you're saying that that's all they get, that's what they're thriving off of, or are they also being fed?
They had their full meals, and they were actually scavenged, which means like a tube was sent down into the stomach, and they were given water as a control group, olive oil, and then olive oil with this ESS 60 molecule in it.
Okay.
Again, toxicity study, but instead of being toxic, those rats that were given, really it's the MyVitalC formula, lived 90% longer than the control group.
Wow.
Now, 90 is a wow number. It's the single longest.
It is a wow number.
Yeah.
Because look, if you told me 50, I'm like, okay, cool. Like, yeah. When you say 90, that's like pretty much, I mean, like that's like double the life, right? Like it's you would be then taking a human being and giving us the life of a macaw parrot or a Galapagos tortoise. And that seems absurd to me, so I'm interested. Hear more.
So if this pans out for humans, and we can talk about kind of the relationship between rats and humans, and what works in rats and what works in humans, the average human would be 152. That's the average, not the oldest, but the average, right?
We're talking a parrot, or a tortoise,
Yeah. By the way, I'm impressed with your biology, knowing other animals that.
I'm an animal freak, man, but I do humans, but I also know a lot about animals. I wanted to be a vet when I grew up, and then I was like, that's not very lucrative. I need to choose something. So yeah.
I'm just thinking you also train turtles on the side. I think maybe that's it.
Love it.
So yeah, the average human would be 152, not the longest human. Not only did those rats live 90% longer, by the way, that's I said, single longest longevity experiment on mammals. The next best researched way to live longer, and you'll be familiar with this, is calorie restriction. Okay. If you restrict your calorie consumption by 30%, by the way, not 30% of like the American diet, but 30% of what your BMI index says you should be eating. So let's be realistic. In some people's cases, that might be 50% of your diet.
Yeah, for sure.
If you reduce your calorie consumption by 30%, you can extend your life by 30%. I call that the starve yourself 1/3 to death diet. And really no one's signing up for that. They need to work on their marketing is probably what the deal is, but that's still only 30%, not 90%.
Yeah. And so we'll hit on that for a second and then go back to this. So the 30%, I'm trying to process this in my mind. You're the science guy here. You alluded to the biology. I'm that guy, but when I'm trying to process this in my mind, and it doesn't make sense to me because you said the starvation, whatever you call it, to starve yourself. The thing is
1/3 to death. Yeah.
Yeah. So how does somebody sustain that? It's not sustainable. Don't you then you start to wilt away, because is it 30% from the baseline, or do you continue 30% from where you're at?
Baseline and baseline. And actually, I haven't kind of looked at the data. It wouldn't surprise me if at some point there's like, you just need to consume this many calories. It doesn't matter if you're losing weight, right? Like
that makes more sense. I think 30% less than where you're at right now. And then that becomes your new baseline. But then you're talking about human beings who are walking around. And no offense taken here, a lot of vegans kind of present this way to me. My brother-in-law is a vegan, and he doesn't have a lot of meat on his bones. It's almost like that visual seems to be deficient in some things, right? And so I don't know that would be worth it for me. Like, I like my physique. My wife likes my physique. It's not my number one focus.
Maybe even more importantly, your wife likes your physique, right?
Right. And so, and I tell, we talk about it all the time. The two reasons I even go to the gym are mental clarity and energy levels. And the physique is literally just a secondary of just showing up every week and doing the things I know I need for myself. So I can't envision this like wilting away look. Would be good on anyone, nor would that be healthy long-term in my eyes. And so, we'll squash that. Well, nobody's signing up for that.
The data's pretty clear though, right? So we got to kind of stick with the data. It is actually healthful, right? Because they live longer lives. Now, I don't know if you're familiar with David Sinclair's book, Lifespan. Phenomenal book. He's like 25 plus years of research into longevity. like exclusively. That's always looking at is like, how do I make creatures live longer?
Yeah.
And he talks about he's met people who are, you know, effectively starving themselves 1/3 to death. And they're the people, I think, like you're imagining, where they're always, it's 80 degrees and they got a sweater on, right?
Yeah.
And they don't necessarily move that quick, right? So
do I want to live longer if that's my lifestyle, right? Like that's the...
I think a lot of people, not everyone, because we have a very large population, a lot of people would throw that into the same category of how long do you want to live infirmed, right?
Sure.
Like they're kind of the same. There's some feelings that are the same, but some people do it, and the data's good. If that's good for you and you want to live 30% longer, great. Because there's actually a lot more research, confirmed research on that, on a whole bunch of different animal models, et cetera. And by the way, it's that information that has turned intermittent fasting into the craze that it is right now. So you look at the markers that exist in people who are, you know, consuming 2/3 of the calories that they normally would, and you look at a lot of the markers in their bodies. Intermittent fasting is known to create a lot of the same markers, right? The same indicators. And so they're really just saying, hey, when you're doing intermittent fasting, you're hopefully, and it's hopeful because the data's not in yet, but you're hopefully creating the same environment that you were on full-on calorie restriction. You just don't have to starve, you know, all the time. And really, I do intermittent fasting on Mondays and Tuesdays, and it's really not that big a deal, right?
I follow it every day, and that's what we teach. We teach well, let me back up. There's a million and one ways to skin a cat. Not all of our clients come in and follow intermittent fasting. We have some guys that come in, follow a traditional eating schedule, and absolutely crush it. But I teach a modified version of intermittent fasting, which is kind of like you alluded to the bulletproof coffee thing. So it's kind of like a bulletproof coffee on the front end of the day. Hold your fast longer. And then have a narrow eating window. Now, I've been doing this a long time. My eating window is from 2 to 7. I have a 5-hour eating window, and I get 4 meals in that time. And I consume somewhere around 2,000 calories a day. But I would say a bulk of my diet is healthy fats, which gets my calories up very quickly. Lots of nuts, lots of avocado, lots of salmon, like a lot of healthy fat. And so, you know, mine might be a unique description there, but I'm very much a believer in intermittent fasting. I think it's very convenient especially for the typical guy, not having to shovel down a bunch of food in the morning, and even having better focus. A lot of our clients come in and say, I could never do that. I'm a morning workout guy. And within 3 days, they come back reporting, dude, I've never had the amount of energy during a workout that I do now. And I'm fasted during my workouts. And so I'm a big believer in that. And so I totally agree.
Yeah. And again, that's driven by the markers that parallel really concrete research. So that's kind of cool. Now, in that study, again, those rats live 90% longer. Another amazing aspect of that study is they used Wistar rats in this particular study. Typical Wistar rat lives 32 months, and they have a known amount of tumors in their body. The longer they live, the more tumor mass they have in their body. Okay. Even though the MyVitalC rats live 90% longer, none of them had any tumors, right?
Wow.
Now, I always like to pause here because some people go like, oh, cancer cure. And the answer to that is no. That is not what that even implies.
Right.
There's a huge difference between managing a cancer that has metastasized and managing and actually being a cancer preventative. We actually know things as simple as a good night's rest consistently, good nutrition, exercise are cancer preventative. So that piece of the study just represents that it's likely this is a good cancer preventative. So it just fits in with a good healthy diet and healthy routine.
The things we know work, right? The pillars, sleep, stress management, nutrition, fitness. You do those, you simplify your life and focus on those, and don't be overconsumed by all the wealth of knowledge out there. You're going to be in a lot better place tomorrow than you were today. And I think that's a reality. So, okay, we'll squash the 30% longer because nobody's signing up. None of my audience is signing up.
Let's send it back to the marketing department and see if they can, refresh.
You got it. No, none of my audience is signing up for the wilt away diet. Okay. So let's move to the 90% because I'm very curious. The reality is not enough data to know how this is going to impact humans. I'm not sure that I would even believe anything that's going to tell me that I can live 152 years. And that's the average, you said. So if we're taking average out and we're going, let's say the exceptions, we're probably talking 170, 180. Now we're talking the lifespan again of a tortoise. I don't know that I want to live that long, but if I could make it to 120 and be, again, physically and mentally independent for the most part, I'm signing up for that. So where do we go from here?
Let me add to it, right?
Yeah.
So in that original publication published in 2012, there was no notation that the rats were walking around with little rat walkers and little rat oxygen tanks, right? Like they lived healthy rat lives until, in fact, actually they were down to 2. One of them passed and then they euthanized the next one. Because think about, I always like to give credit to these researchers. Remember, this was a toxicity study.
Sure.
And the one thing that is absolutely true is when your control group is all dead and your quote unquote toxic group is all still alive, your study is over.
Yes.
It is not toxic. They outlived the control group, right? But they kept doing the animal husbandry necessary to have these rats live the rest of their natural rat lives, in this case, and drew that out. That's an extra 2.5 years of rat animal husbandry, right? That's like kudos to them for drawing this out and actually doing, continuing that research. Cause it's, you know, it's a pretty phenomenal, it's an absolute, like it's the longest, it's not a pretty phenomenal result. It's the most phenomenal result as it relates to longevity in rats. So, and I want to kind of pull back a little bit here because yes, I'm in this podcast and yes, I'm kind of promoting a product that has this amazing story behind it. But I want to talk a little bit about how I tried very hard not to be a supplement guy. Like I did not want to get in the supplement business. My business partner didn't want to get in the supplement business. You know, that study came out in 2012. By mid 2013, we started getting phone calls and people are calling us and say, hey, how much in a dose? And you have to think, I'm wearing my carbon nanomaterial scientist hat and I'm going, this is good in ink and batteries and solar cells. You don't put this in the human body. We actually added not for human consumption to our labeling for the first time in 2013. So company start 1991, 2013, finally add not for human consumption. We didn't have to worry about it prior to that study coming out. And I want to be very clear that the data was also very clear. Even then, we're just slow conservative scientists. Even in 2013, C60 for industrial applications, peer-reviewed published research showed that if you process it improperly, it's harmful. ESS60, all the research on properly processed C60 showed it to be safe. And in fact, you have this amazing longevity. It turned out to be a longevity study that came off of that. So we've got not for human consumption. We're getting 2 calls a week, probably. Those calls are people saying things like, hey, my knee pain is gone, or my hair is growing faster. And I'll do a disclaimer here because I need to. The FDA has not evaluated our product. It is not intended to treat, diagnose, or prevent any disease. And I'm also going to share any testimonial that I share. I'm in direct contact with the person, and if I had to, I could put somebody in direct contact with them. So if a customer tells me how their aunt, whatever happened, I would never share that testimonial. I like that chain of custody, and that's very important to me. So they're calling us and they're saying, you know, these great benefits. And, you know, we're kind of like, you mean your rat doesn't feel any knee pain anymore, right? Because like, we're just trying to be that conservative scientist, encourage the right behavior. Fast forward to 2017. There's a guy with a really big YouTube following. He starts talking about all the benefits he was getting from taking the product on a daily basis. And our phone went from ringing twice a week to like 10 times a day. Come into 2018, my business, I mean, we are carbon nanomaterial scientists, but we're also entrepreneurs. This is clearly an opportunity. So we asked ourselves 2 questions. The first one is the moral question. Am I comfortable selling this product? I take it, my wife takes it, everybody on our team takes it. I am comfortable selling it. And then the other here in the States is the FDA and the FTC, and we're following those guidelines to a T. And so, yes, that's 2018 was when we brought the product to market. It took us from 2013, which was obviously an opportunity, to 2018 for us to really shun the supplement industry. I remember reading an article that said 50% of the supplements on the market don't have in them what they say they have in them.
I would agree with that. I'm going to tell you that I have not been a big supplement guy, and it's not something that we push on any of our clients. I'm a firm believer. I take turmeric. I'm a daily turmeric guy.
Yep.
And I also take a greens powder. I do believe in the soil depletion. I do believe that, I eat a lot of greens, a lot of spinach. But I also know that that probably not getting the nutrients that I once would have from that. And so I do take a greens powder. So I'm not a big supplement guy.
Right.
So my question to you now is, you say that you and your family all take this, and you're telling some amazing things that other people have reported. What have you yourself experienced from starting this regimen? And is this a daily dose? How does it all work?
So I'll start on my routine, and then I'll talk about the benefits that I've noticed. So my routine is, I actually bulletproof coffee, except we actually have an MCT, right? Okay. That has our molecule in it. Okay. So I'm putting my MCT oil in, and we're actually coming out really kind of we're going to call it, I think it's purple coffee. We thought about purple bullet and whatever. I don't want to go head to head with Dave. There's no reason to do that.
I get it. Yeah.
But it's just it's an augmented MCT that goes into his coffee. So that's what I do. Why that's mixing, right? Why that's blending, I actually take 1.5 teaspoons. Our typical customer takes 1 teaspoon or 5 mils. And we actually have a really kind of unique packaging. For those who are just listening, again, you should go to the YouTube and subscribe and
go check out. Subscribe.
But I'm holding up. If you've ever seen like these little maybe portable eye solutions where you can put drops in your eyes.
That's exactly what it looks like.
That kind of plastic ampule, and this has 5 mils, 1 teaspoon in it, so you can take it on the go. And so the typical dose is 5 mils. Also, when I usually have a salad, it sounds like we eat very similarly. I have a lot of avocado. I've got salmon on my salad, but I'll put our avocado product on that. So we've got olive oil, avocado oil, and MCT oil. As far as the benefits, so I played soccer for 25 years. I had off of soccer, I had a knee pain that was just there all the time. And when I started taking this in 2018, that knee pain went away. I kind of have to embarrassingly admit, this is a dad program, so this is probably cool. I used to take 2 naps before noon on Saturdays and Sundays.
Okay.
I would wake up, the kids would sit literally on me watching cartoons, right? And I would take a nap. I'd wake up, have breakfast, and then I'd take another nap. 2 naps before noon. Since I've been taking the product, I barely take naps. I still take one every now and then, but I'm, actually this hasn't happened in a while, but I'm in the same situation, or was in the same situation in 2018, where I'm on the couch with the kids. I'm just not falling asleep. And guess what? When you're not napping, you're actually I get restless. So I get up and go do stuff. So I'm getting more done. So that's sleep. I also noticed that, when your mind is going really quickly and you're going to bed and there's a part of you who's like, I don't even know if I'm going to be able to fall asleep. I noticed that. But what happens is when I put my head on the pillow, I fall asleep. And if I have to get up in the middle of the night to use the restroom, again, my mind's going really quick. I'm like, I could get up and work or whatever, get back, head hits the pillow, and I fall asleep. So that is our most consistent testimonial from customers, is they take it in the morning. They report mental focus and energy during the day and better sleep that night. Now, I think it's worth pausing really just on that testimonial for there's a whole number of reasons. One, I'm actually doing a sleep study with Oura Ring. But kind of really important is there's a book called Why We Sleep by Matthew Walker. I don't know if you've read that book. It's absolutely,
I have not read that book.
It's a phenomenal book.
Is it?
It's also I call it the Freddy Krueger of sleep books, because it's the scariest book about sleep you'll ever read. Like, you'll read it and then go like, I feel like I should take a nap now because Dr. Matthew Walker says it's good for me, and it's good for my heart, and it's good for my ability to remember stuff, and it's good for my
I'm very big on quality and quantity of sleep. So I mean, look, the reality is that's something that we highly emphasize in our community.
You will totally geek out on this book. You should go get it, right?
All right.
And things you may not know that I learned from the book is, we do this horrible sleep experiment twice a year, daylight savings time. When we gain an hour of sleep, heart attacks go down by 20+%. When we lose that hour of sleep, heart attacks go up by 20+%.
Why are we still doing that?
I'm not even sure. Like, I'm not sure. Every now and then I research it and I walk away going, I still don't know why we're doing it. Like,
it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like, doesn't Arizona not do it? Like,
I think that and Indiana, or at least some parts of Indiana. Right?
Okay. There's a split right around. Okay. Yeah.
There's smarter places around even the United States than us.
Yeah.
I mean, in that book, he talks about, there was one, so teenagers, we'll just geek out on sleep for a little bit. So teenagers naturally shift their circadian rhythm to a later time. So they are actually night owls. If you recognize this, there was one part of the country where they shifted the school start time, right? Because school start time is fixed and forcing kids to be outside of their normal circadian rhythm.
Okay.
They shifted the school start time by about 1 hour, I think, and car accidents went down 14%.
That's wild.
Right? Because you'd sleep deprived car accidents by teenagers. Like, this is, the math isn't that complicated. So that's this thing. One of the things Dr. Walker talks about in this book is the $2 billion, I'm doing air quotes here, sleep aid industry, right?
Okay.
Like, these are prescription drugs that knock you out right before you go to sleep.
Yes.
What he says in it, and this is kind of interesting if you're aware, that one of the things that causes us to desire sleep is adenosine. The buildup of adenosine causes us to desire sleep. These sleep aids, these quote unquote sleep aids, knock you out, and while you're unconscious, and I'm using that very intentionally,
it's the facts. I've seen a lot of ambient horror stories, man. I'm just gonna tell you, it's not okay with me. Yeah.
No. So you wake up and it's relieved the chemical pressure of adenosine. So you wake up without the desire of sleep, but you haven't gotten the REM or the NREM sleep that you need. So
it's worthless.
Yes. It's the opposite. It's actually opposite. It makes you think the most restorative and healing part of your life, sleep, happened, and it didn't actually happen. Like, it really couldn't be any worse.
Yeah.
I'm still floored that it's on the market. But you contrast that with like our product. Again, our customers usually take it in the morning, mental focus and energy during the day, and then better sleep that night. There's only 2 other things that I'm aware of that you can do in the morning to impact sleep. One of them is exercise, right? And the other one that I'm aware of is get out in the sun, like expose yourself to sunlight to get your circadian rhythm in tune with the rising and falling of the sun.
Yep.
So it really is a unique product from that perspective. So that's our consistency. So let me get back to kind of my testimonial. Brains firing quickly. The next thing that's important, I really am this geeky scientist. I have a spreadsheet back to 2014 of my migraines. I used to get 4 or 5 migraines a year, and I was trying to, collect data, figure out, did I drink too much back then? Did I eat something? Was I under stress? Trying to figure out what was causing migraines, because they're not fun for anybody who's had migraines, right? In 2018, when I first started taking the product on a regular basis, I didn't get a single migraine.
That's
Couple
awesome.
that with my wife. My wife was on a medication, and I always remember the number 9 because they gave her, she could get 9 of these pills per month. Okay. Any migraine after number 9, which she had, she just had to suffer through. And she's gone from those 9+ migraines per month. Now she's like 1 a month or 1 every other month since she started. By the way, it wasn't easy to get my wife to take the product, but now that she's on it, she loves it. Yeah. So those are really my testimonials, the impact that it's had for me and really also my wife.
Oh, that's awesome, man. Look, so I want to let's stay on the sleep thing for a minute, because you're the geeky scientist, and
Yeah.
I have to go here because I have not had this opportunity to ask anybody else. It's never it's never been a line, and so you have, we'll call it, I don't know, invented or created this product, right? But I want this is something that my wife and I talk often about, because I feel like if somebody could invent what I'm about to talk about here, it would be like, it would literally, it would change the world, like literally change the world, and it's all around sleep. And so we have all these medications that can help us get to sleep, or you could use, a lot of people will use alcohol, right? It induces sleep, but it doesn't help you get sleep.
It's actually negative.
That's where a lot of people,
just like the sleep aids, alcohol has the same negative effect. Yeah.
Right. So you get to sleep, but you don't get well rested. And so we've always talked about, and I know it's impossible because it hasn't been done yet, but you're talking about increasing longevity beyond 150 years, which seems absurd to anybody listening to the show, and that's the average, right? What are your thoughts? And maybe as a geeky scientist, you've thought about this before, but what are your thoughts on, we talk about sleep aids, but what about sleep supplements? And when I say sleep supplements, I'm saying a pill to take that will supplement 8 hours of well-rested sleep. You're an overnight trillionaire, literally.
Yes.
Because
no, that'll have no value. No one will be interested in that.
I mean, like, everybody in the world would want that immediately, right? I know as an entrepreneur, you're the same. We often feel like there's not enough time in the day. And if I could get, if I could work for 20 hours and just chill for 4 and never have to sleep, but I'm always well rested. I mean, what a mind-blowing invention that is, right?
Yeah. Well, absolutely. I think that would be amazing. I also think I'm not the guy who's going to do that.
You're like, if you FDA, no.
No. If you think about this, I didn't even invent this, right? Sure. Like I've been manufacturing this that some other guys found and won the Nobel Prize since 91.
That's why I use the term invent loosely, right? It's like,
but it also puts me in a unique position because, I'll be happy to send you some product and you may come back and say, well, I didn't really notice anything. And for me, it's not my baby in the sense that I put my heart and soul into designing this thing that was going to help you. And you're telling me that your baby's ugly, right? It's just a thing that I tried not to sell. I actually tried for years to not sell it. Yep. And so I'm not I'd say it's about 3% of people kind of come back to us and say they don't really know.
They're like, yeah.
And I'll be honest, I do think a lot of those, but probably not all of them, but a lot of them are just, you're in this industry, a lot of people don't know their bodies. Like they just don't, like, if you're like, hey, I'm not sleeping better, and then you have them track it, you're like, wow, I used to get 3 and now I'm getting 8. I didn't know that, right?
People don't know their bodies. You wouldn't be shocked because you'll believe this wholeheartedly. We only work with men. You would not believe how many men come into the program and tell us that their stress is minimal and they don't have any stress. And then they're like, that's not something that I need to address, right? And then they tap into our strategies when we start talking about, there's a lot of stuff we go down, but like gratitude journaling or meditation, deep breathing, blocking out the first part of your day to avoid any negative stimulus from social media, emails, these kind of things to serve you, to start to set your day up proactively. These little nuances, and we have a whole system that we teach. But when you start implementing those things and you do it for a couple of weeks, you wouldn't believe how many guys come back and they're like, you know what? I think I had a lot more stress than I realized because I feel a hell of a lot better in this department now. So totally get it.
Well, and I've got one, and it's a really interesting testimonial that kind of it culminates on stress. So we're not really a retail location. People will come in for will call. I think it was early in probably mid 2018. I happened to be here on a Sunday, and this guy knocked on the door, and I was like, okay, well, it felt very clandestine. He was like, do you have any ESS 60? And I'm like, yes, I do. And so we came in and I sold him some. I actually had to put his information through the website because we don't have a till here. It was, figuring it all out really quickly, right? Well, he came back. I was walking around the front of the lobby, and Cassandra, who really runs the office, I do everything she tells me to do. She was helping him, and I recognized him, and I'm like, oh, this is great. And she goes, yeah, this is his third time back. And at the time we were running a special on 3 bottles, and he was buying 3 bottles. And I thought to myself, well, this guy's going to have a great testimonial, right? So like, what is your experience? And he said, well, and he seemed very disappointed. He's like, Chris, I really, I haven't noticed anything. And I'm like, oh, okay. Well, there's some people who just think that it's a good process to potentially live longer. And that's an accurate assessment from the rat study. So there's kind of weird silence. And then he goes, well, I have to ask you, is it good for, and I can't, for FDA reasons, we can't describe the exact word that he used, but he had some pain in his knuckles, right? And he was like, is it good for that?
Arthritis.
Not intended to treat, diagnose, cure, or prevent.
Sure.
This is just a testimonial. Your experience might be different. And he goes, does it help with that? And I was like, well, we had some customers say that it's been beneficial. And he goes, well, then it's definitely helping me. And I used to have this like click, click, click in my knee, and now that's gone. And I was thinking, well, it's a shame nothing happened. Right?
Yeah, it's a shame you have a shitty testimonial because.
And then he said he was about like the next day he was going to go on he started jogging again, which he hadn't done for some number of years. And then he finished he goes, Chris, and I got to share this with you. I feel less stress at work. I have to be very clear about this. It's the same job. It's the same people. It's the same stress. I just feel less stressed at work. And
what an awful testimonial.
Right. Yeah. But he feels nothing. Right. And overall, he gives it a 1 out of 5. Right. And that could just be sleep. Right. The reality is, if this is helping, like I said, I'm doing a sleep study. If this can help you sleep better, then that helps. We know sleep helps your mental, physical, and emotional well-being.
Yes.
Like how many of the pillars is helped? I mean, sleep is one of the pillars, but is emotion,
stress. Yeah.
Yeah. So stress.
The other two has to take a little work, right?
But, yeah.
The result of less stress and better sleep, you kind of improve 2 major pillars of your life.
Really, really quickly. So yeah, we get that, and we actually get it. There's another test, and a testimonial I think is pretty relevant. I got some product to her, and she got her video. She was on the product for a month. She sent the video, and I'm watching the video, and she starts the video off with, "I'm in the process of quitting smoking." Right. And I was like, oh man, like if I'd known you were quitting smoking, I would quit smoking, and then I can send you a product for a testimonial. I figured the testimonial would just be horrible, because that's not I've heard people talk about, it's not a good experience.
Right.
But it actually ended up being a positive testimonial. And one of the phrases she used in it was, I have a longer string with my kids. I don't know if it's string, but thread or something like I have a longer fuse with my kids.
There you go. Yep.
Right. And that means a lot. It actually, again, go back to sleep. Very relevant for dad bods, right? For dads out there, having that fuse, coming home from a long day at work, and then knowing 100%. That you're overreacting and not being able to stop it is so
100%.
Frustrating. But she shared that while quitting smoking. So really, I kind of rested on that better sleep piece. There may be other things. We do know that the molecule is small enough to cross the blood-brain barrier. And so it could actually be having real-time impact in the brain. We also know it can get into and does get into the mitochondria and can participate in the ATP processes in there. And for those who don't know, mitochondria is in every cell in our body, and it's the powerhouse of every cell. It's the thing that gives your cells energy so that they can stay alive. No mitochondria, no human is kind of the short equation there. And that it can get in there and potentially act as an antioxidant while it's going through. You can imagine if it's the powerhouse, almost every form of power, it gives off some sort of things that you need to get rid of. In this case, it's reactive oxygen species, which cause oxidation. So it can actually absorb those and potentially get those out of the body. Those are some of the theories about what's actually happening at the molecular level with this molecule.
Love it, man. Love it. Well, hey, this has been awesome. I definitely learned a lot. I'm curious to learn more. So where can we find you? Where can we learn more? I know there's going to be a lot of guys out there that are like, I'd like to live to 152 and on average. And, we
As
don't
long
know about that right now, right?
As long as I don't have a little rat walker and a little rat oxygen tank,
Then, they're fine.
Sign
right?
me up.
So where can we find you? Yeah.
So we made a link specifically for your audience. So if they go to myvitalc.com/dadbodpod, right? So nice, easy, dadbodpod. They'll go to our website. You can find our bottle for those of you, again, who are watching. If you're not, go to YouTube, click the subscribe button.
Click. Go subscribe. We've said it enough, guys. Yeah.
This is our bottle. It sells for about $99. If you get on subscription, it's $75. So a 25% discount. You can cancel at any time. I just encourage, take advantage of it. By the way, we actually added subscriptions because our customers they literally were calling us and saying, I keep forgetting to reorder your product. Can you please get me a subscription so I don't have to keep calling you and going without the product, right? So it was customer driven.
So this is that one bottle is a full month?
It's right at a month. So if you're doing 5 mils and you can cut back a little bit, it's 24 days. So it's 120 mils, so it gets you right at 24 days. Now, if you order the box of these guys, we call these our little ampules, our single shots, that comes in a box of 30. So that's exactly 30 servings in one box.
Same price?
It's a little bit more expensive. We're actually running a special, if you go on the homepage, it's normally $129. It's $99 on subscription, but right now you can get your first box at $77. So that's probably the thing to go for. And then this one, same thing. It's similar. It's a 25% discount if you get it on subscription. You can cancel at any time. Our team is not like, we have 500 5-star reviews on Google. They're not trained to talk you out of
I get
subscription.
Hey, look, you're not being strong-armed into something that you don't want to do. If you like it, you like it, and if you don't, you don't, right?
Exactly.
You're there to serve those who see the benefits.
And then we also have a coupon code, DadBodPod. We'll get you an additional $15 off of your first order. So make sure and take advantage of those discounts.
Love it, man. No, this has been great. No, I appreciate you taking some time to add the value that you did today. It was a great conversation, and we'll get all that information in the show notes so that all our listeners know where to find it. So
excellent. Jason,
awesome,
thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, no, thank you for coming on again. You and your family have a fantastic weekend.
Same to you.
Thanks, Chris.